Hello everybody, my name is Shirley Nguyen and this is English 244, Section 6 with Professor Benson. Slavery, segregation, civil rights. These topics are the generalization of what I knew prior to the lecture enrollment of African American literature. I knew that slavery existed and that many great historical leaders and common people have fought and died to ensure that every single African American person would never have to endure what their ancestors did. I thought that the range of my knowledge would widen as I learned in depth what actually happened during the years that slavery took place in this nation without the bias that other general studies have on the subject. Of course, I know that this is not a history class, but a literature course, so I thought that I would be able to also read poems and narratives from historical figures that made such a difference and contributed to what is African American literature. What I did not anticipate is how fortunate I would be to have the opportunity to learn even more than just the slavery period. I got the chance to study what happened during the Harlem Renaissance and the Black Arts, Black Powers movement, as well as how discrimination and even certain oppression continue to exist today. Poems such as Lucy Terry's Bars Fight in 1746 and Aunt Chloe's Politics in 1872 by Frances E. Harper are extremely fascinating. The level of intelligence these women demonstrated and the capability to creatively express themselves by writing poems that others could potentially relate to and perhaps use as a form of coping mechanism. They resisted tyranny by risking their lives so that their stories could be heard. As the first known piece of literature that was authored by a Black person, Terry impressively used rhyme scheme and tetrameter couplets in Bars Fight. Her well-chosen words and fierce tone is a news-like report of deaths that were chronically organized, that she herself witnessed. During the Reconstruction era, Harper created a persona in her poem who chose to portray ignorance by self-effacing when it came to the everyday discussion of politics, when she in fact was very knowledgeable and had excellent points while she voiced her opinions. The dialect suggested the perspective of an older person, which is reference to the title itself as the persona of an aunt. I even learned the intense details of a non-fiction from an author who went through extremities to escape the indignities of slavery in chapter 29, The Loophole of Retreat, from Harriet Jacobs, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl in 1861. In this narrative, Jacobs shared some of her tremendous adventures by confessing that she chose to imprison herself and demonstrated human dignity by carrying out her sentence after she escaped her malicious master. Though she had help of a few family members, she did not travel far. She was actually hidden beneath the floorboards of her grandmother's property. It was a sacrifice that she managed to endure and survive in that miserable crawl space for almost 7 long years. She was deprived of oxygen, sunlight, and the ability to move freely in that tightened space. She suffered extreme climates, insect attacks, and had no interactions with the world. As a result, she became ill because of the strains her body, mind, and soul that was tolerated during those long years proved that she was only able to hold on because of her humanity. Other incredible stories include Chapter 19, Escape of Clotel, from Clotel or the President's Daughter in 1853 by William Wells Brown, where resistance in tyranny and human dignity was again demonstrated. The plot of this chapter, which was the first published novel by an African American, was about how compassion can exist between slaves, a mechanic named William and a light-skinned slave named Clotel. To prove that even slaves were just as capable to exhibit friendship and humanity, Brown's characters cleverly came up with an escape plan with William's money, and Clotel made it a point that she would not go through with it unless William was right beside her. Due to the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, it was decided that Clotel is to be disguised as a slave master, with William acting as her slave. They both share an unbelievable adventure while traveling north on a train together towards freedom. African Americans were turned slaves, forced immigrants to this land, and they fought for their basic rights to become a part of the nation that they helped create. Everyone is entitled to the basic rights of a human being, to be treated humanely. Some of us in this nation fought for those basic rights, while others, like myself, were born with those rights. This literature course has reminded me of the suffering that many wrongly had to sustain so that we can live peacefully in today's society. The knowledge and new perspective I was able to gain from taking this literature class is nothing short of being valuable. I have come to appreciate the lifestyle that I am fortunate enough to have, even more so than before. What is Black aesthetic? From the mid-1960s to the mid-1970s, the founding father, or, quote, intellectual leader of the Black arts movement, end quote, Larry Neal, quote, not only gave the Black arts movement its name and aspects of its distinctive style, philosophical foundations, cultural conditions, and revolutionary aspirations, end quote, but he also was one of the many theorists of the, quote, era's articulations of aesthetics and politics, end quote. The Black aesthetics is all part of the Black arts, Black powers movement concept. The term aesthetic itself can be defined as a form of artistic expression that includes a variety of drama, essays, fictions, music, and even poetries. According to Neal, quote, Black arts movement eschews protest literature. It speaks directly to Black people, end quote. Overall, the Black aesthetic is a mixture of traditional identity and the protest of the white ideas. Its goal is to push for meaningful discussion about the roles that the Black community has faced ever since they were forced to live in this country. Should we look at history through the eyes of the oppressor, or should we give the oppressed a voice to share their perspective? The Black aesthetic is the Black community's art, literature, and music that pushes its ideals to a society that has not accepted them fully. There is indeed a definitive Black aesthetic present in 2016, thanks to its predecessors in the Black community. Through jazz, blues, hip hop, and rap music, our generation has created substantial examples of what it means to be Black aesthetics. The Black aesthetic has gone into the mainstream and has been accepted into many different cultures in our society. It has been noted many times that the media has used the Black aesthetic for their own personal gains. The term Black aesthetic have been used positively and negatively in this modern times. For instance, when there was a group of Caucasian people that tipped over cars because their hockey team lost a championship game, the media chose to call them rioters, whereas the contemporary hashtag Black Lives Matters movement's peaceful protesters are called thugs. This pessimistic view is just another way to show power over the Black culture. With the new sense of always being connected, the Black aesthetic lives through the social media as well. With the rise of social media figures such as King Bach, Whitney White, and Kingsley, together they chose to share their experiences in their everyday lives. The Black aesthetic is not just a simple movement. It is a form of expression that goes deeper than face value and encompasses the history of Black culture. When you see a piece of artwork with a Black aesthetic, what is being seen is not only of strokes from a paintbrush, but of a history of protests and traditions that continue to live on today.